With the 23rd overall pick in the 2013 draft, the Vikings select defensive tackle Sheriff Floyd from the University of Florida. Come on out here, Sheriff.
Oh, man, thank you.
Yeah. Say a picture. Wait, hold on a second. This isn't about the Vikings.
Hey, you, get out of my set. Let's go like this. This is about the ruthless, medieval, Scandinavian, heartless, scumbag Viking warriors, not the 2-14 Minnesota Vikings. These Vikings were from northern Germany, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. These countries made up Scandinavia. Welcome to Crash Course History with today's topic, the Vikings. We will be talking about who they were, where they came from, what they did, and how they influenced the world and its people. We are also expecting a very special guest on the show, Sean Gutenbress himself. The Vikings were sea-faring people. They settled in various places around the world, including several countries in Europe as well as Asia. The Vikings were sea-faring people. They settled in various places around the world, including several countries in Europe as well as Asia. They also explored the North Atlantic and expanded westward toward Iceland and Greenland. The Vikings were nomadic people. They explored various lands for food, money, and other riches. To explore these areas, they used different boats. Viking boats were characterized as slender and flexible. They were recognized by their symmetrical ends. They also had a design at each end of the ship. Now we're on to the development of the ships. The warship has become a cultural icon of the Vikings. This trend was not particularly shocking due to it functioning as a centerpiece of Scandinavian culture for centuries. Scandinavia was a region with relatively high inland mountain ranges and easy access to coastal posts. Consequently, trade routes primarily operated by shipping. The Viking kingdoms developed into coastal cities, all of which were deeply dependent on the North Sea for survival and development. Control of the waterways was then of critical importance. And consequently, the most advanced warships were in high demand. In fact, because of their overwhelming importance, ships became a mainstay of the Viking pageant religion as they became symbols of power. We're now calling in a famous constructor of the Nord, Sean Gutenbress, or something like that. Welcome, Sean. What can you tell us about the North?
Thank you for having me. I can tell you that the Nor was a wonderful ship. These ships were almost as furious as the power Mongols.
Thank you for that information.
Anytime.
The next Viking ship was the Narv. Narvs were a type of small ship similar to the Nor. They were used for mainly human transport. They were used for coasting the land because they could easily float above the shallow waters. The next boat was the Faring. I don't know how to say it. It was an open boat with 2 pairs of oars. They date all the way back to the Viking era. The long ship is the last ship. These special ships were naval vessels used for trade, commerce, and expeditions to new lands. The longest design evolved over the years, beginning in the Stone Age and lasting until about the 9th century. The ship was a very popular one. They were classified into a number of different categories depending on size and prestige. Longships were the naval power during the Viking Age. They were known to win many battles on the waters. Vikings had a very original ritual to preserving a body. The dead man's body would be best prepared for the occasion and dressed in his best clothes. The Vikings believed that the dead man would peacefully sail his way into the afterlife.
Mr. Kelly, what are the myths associated with the Vikings?
Who questioned me from the past? Viking myths are numerous, and there were many false obligations when it comes to them. For example, the Vikings did not actually wear horn helmets, and they weren't filthy and disgusting like they are perceived out to be. Also, they did not spend all of their time raiding and warring others. Believe it or not, many Vikings kept farms, their homelands, that their wives would take care of during the Viking season. When the season was over, they would resume their farming routines. Next, a big myth is that the Vikings were one big unified army. They were not. Christianity and limited farmland caused different groups to emerge in the Viking society. So therefore, they were not just one big unified army. The last big myth is that associated with the Vikings is that they were all big muscular men. Growing crops was difficult and natural resources were scarce, so many Viking warriors were smaller and less muscular as many people thought. With these many myths, the Vikings had a smaller form of mythology that they believed in. Pronunciation check. Gin Ungagap was a type of their mythology.
Now it's time for fan mail.
Fan mail. The question in the secret note reads, were the Vikings as cruel and dominant as the Mongols? Good question. But the answer is no. Even though the Vikings raided random lands and took valuable goods from people, they were not as cruel as the Mongol Empire. The Vikings did kill people when they were raiding, but they did not take their wives and children like the Mongols did. They also did not kill people as cruelly. Mongol warriors were said to have cut the heads off enemies and burned them in a pile. Don't get me wrong, the Vikings were very dominant and cruel themselves, but they were nowhere close to being as cruel, as dominant, and powerful as the Mongol Empire. Now it's finally time to look at the Viking time frame. The Vikings were very dominant and powerful during their era, but they were not the only thing that happened during that time. While the Vikings were raiding, kingdoms were building big castles and strong defenses to help prevent Viking raids. Also, stronger armies and more powerful kingdoms were being created in England to try and take power back from the dominating Vikings. As you can see, the Vikings were very much feared and were very powerful when it came to being a controlling empire. This concludes our World Crash Course history on the Vikings.